Hello there, Steve-Os. Welcome back to another episode of Steve's movie wrap-up right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. I've got 11 movies to get through this week. Loads of movies I've watched over this last week, so stick with me because I'm going to go through all 11 of those films very, very soon. Before I do, though, I've got this drink, right, Pepsi Max Cherry, which is normally my go-to drink, right, in terms of Pepsi Max. Do love the cherry flavoured. Well, I've just got back home. I've just taken that bottle out of my bag, and I've just realised that on my way back from after I finished work, I picked up a bottle of Pepsi Max and not Pepsi Max Cherry. So, there we go. Anyway, without further ado, let's find out and see what movies I've watched and reviewed over this last week right here on the Movie Wrap-Up. You're watching Steve's Movie Wrap-Up, episode 94, right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. The first movie you'll be reviewing in this episode is Whistle. First up on the list is Whistle, which I gave 2 stars over on Letterboxd. Earlier this year we had the release of Whistle, which is a horror movie that sadly I missed out on watching. I think they did have showings on at my local cinema during the day, but at the time I think I was rather busy. Then the screenings became rather limited and I missed my chance watching this one on the big screen, but it has recently come to digital platforms in the UK and I have purchased this one to buy and keep on digital. So what did I think of Whistle? I have heard a lot of people say that this has Final Destination vibes to it. And I do agree. I think there are some plots here that if you go back and rewatch Final Destination, you would agree that this does feel like Final Destination at times. And also, not only that, but I was also getting the same sort of vibes as I would when watching the Smile movies as well. There is some decent horror imagery in this film, although at times, though, I do feel as though this does have the same horror movie tropes that we have seen in other horror movies before. This film does come with a running time clocking in at 1 hour 40 minutes, and I will say there is one death in here that will probably stick with me for a while, and that is the character of Dean. Probably a slight spoiler alert there, giving away one character who dies, but while I won't say how this character dies, meets their maker, in that specific scene, I will say it is a truly horrifying way, and also a rather creative death at the same time as well. Very effective. The film does star Daphne Keane, who I have only seen play a character in Deadpool and Wolverine. She played the same character in that movie in one of the X-Men movies when she was much younger, which is one of the films that I haven't seen before. But that may change later this year, as I am planning to do a Marvel rewatch, and that does include the X-Men films as well. But the film does also star Nick Frost as well, which I have seen him in so many films that I can't even count how many films I have seen him appear in. Other than that, though, the film does star some actors who I don't think I have heard of or seen them in any other project in the past. I will say, though, that the acting in this film was just okay, in my opinion. It was decent enough. It could have been slightly better, but other than that, that is all I've got to say on that side of things. Just going back to the horror imagery for another second, and I will say that the ghouls and monsters that we do see haunting these bunch of friends throughout the movie after blowing this demonic whistle, they do look rather scary and nightmare fueling, to be honest. They also do add a lot of tension to the film at times as well, which is good. Is Whistle a film I can see me going back to and rewatching and revisiting again in the future? Yeah, I can. I can, as this was a decent horror in my opinion. However, though, is this something that I will remember in a few days after watching this? Well, some scenes, yes, I will remember, but for the most part, I wouldn't at all be surprised if we get to the end of the year and then realise that this film was released earlier this year. Is this a film I would recommend the horror community to watch? I would say so, yeah, especially if you are looking for a new horror movie to watch and are intrigued and interested to check this one out, then I would recommend giving this one a go. But Whistle is now available to buy and rent on digital platforms right now. Twinless. Next up this week, I watched Twinless, which I gave 3 stars over on Letterboxd. Twinless is a rather strange film to describe here because what I will say about this film is that it is somewhat heartbreaking, a little wholesome, a little heartwarming at times as well, and there are some moments in the film that does make you laugh out loud as well, which is rather bizarre. A rather bizarre way to describe this film. James Sweeney, who I have never seen in any projects before, does star alongside Dylan O'Brien, who I have seen in a film already this year titled Send Help. And judging by the films he has starred in recently, which I have not yet watched or reviewed, but I am planning to watch and review soon, this won't be the last I watch a film this year that does star Dylan O'Brien in. But they both star in the film Twinless. Twinless does come with a running time of 1 hour and 40 minutes, and I will say that this movie did get a couple of chuckles out of me throughout the running time. Not only that though, I did go into this film somewhat blind, and turns out I did enjoy watching this one more than I was expecting and anticipating as well. There is also a reason behind this title being called Twinless. More ways than one, really, to be honest. But I won't reveal exactly what that is in case you're planning to see this one and give this film a watch as well. But is Twinless a film that I will remember watching? For sure it will be. Do I recommend watching this film? If you are looking for a decent comedy drama film, then I would say give this one a go. And is Twinless a film I can see myself going back to and rewatching and revisiting again sometime in the future? I would be happy to see this one again for sure, but I would say give it a while until I do and end up seeing this one again though. That being said, I would be happy to check this one out again. Twinless is available to buy and rent now on digital platforms. Roommates. Also this week I have watched Roommates, which I gave 3.5 stars over on Letterboxd. I surprisingly really enjoyed watching Roommates over on Netflix, which has now been out over on the streaming service for the last couple of weeks. So here is my thoughts on the film. You have Chloe East and Sadie Sandler, the daughter of Adam Sandler, by the way, who stars in Roommates. The film starts off with these 2 young freshman girls who get into a fight over being bad roommates with each other. They end up in an office talking to Dr. Schilling, who is played by Sarah Sherman, who then goes on to tell the story of these 2 roommates who were just like these 2 girls in the present day. The story is told about 2 girls called Celeste and Devon. Devon is the outcast, the girl that nobody wants to be friends with, the girl who seems to always be chose last, the girl that had no friends, and you do feel bad for her. I felt bad for her anyways. And then you have Celeste. Little is known about Celeste, but as the movie goes on though, you as the audience find out more about this character, and this character becomes rather unlikable. I will say that the performances in this were great from start to finish, and also this film is classed as a comedy as well, and the comedic timing was rather smooth and on point, I would say. I definitely did chuckle at this film a few times throughout the running time, which, speaking of running time, the film does clocking at 1 hour and 48 minutes, and for me, I thought this was a decent running time for a film that I was hooked on watching from the moment that I pressed play on Netflix for this film. Is Roommates a film I can see me revisiting and rewatching again on Netflix in the future? For sure it would be, as I had a great time watching this one. And is Roommates a film I would recommend watching? Yes, especially if you do enjoy comedy films, then this would be the next comedy film that you should watch. Roommates is now streaming on Netflix worldwide. Apex. Next up this week is Apex, which I gave 2.5 stars over on Letterboxd. Apex is a recently released film that has recently arrived over on the streaming service Netflix, and I had seen the trailer for this one, and it did intrigue me and interest me into giving this film a watch. Now that I have seen it, what did I think of Apex? Apex does star Charlize Theron and Taron Egerton, and this is also classed as a cat and mouse thriller. Now, this film is right up my street for sure, because I am a fan of thrillers when it comes to these little games of cat and mouse. I will say, having Taron Egerton play this psychotic man chasing down Charlize Theron's character in this movie was a good casting call, and also the fact that the actor is British and he plays an Australian man with a strong Australian accent as well. I thought he nailed the Australian accent perfectly in this film. I will say, shortly after seeing Apex, I was flicking through TikTok and someone was playing the song Go by the Chemical Brothers, which does feature in this film when Ben, played by Egerton, allows Sasha, played by Theron, have a head start before he started chasing after her in the film. Well, this TikToker was playing the song and he was vibing onto into it the same way that Ben vibes to the song in the film. And let's face it, if you have heard the song Go by the Chemical Brothers and you have watched Apex on Netflix, then you will likely have vibed to that song in the same way that Ben does in the film. Is Apex a film that I would recommend watching? For sure it is. It is a great cat and mouse thriller, which I did enjoy. The running time does also clock in at 1 hour 36 minutes as well, so it doesn't outstay its welcome, and also has some really lovely scenery to appreciate throughout the film. Although the opening sequence did somewhat remind me of the same opening sequence that we got when the movie Fall came out a few years ago, and if you have seen that film before, then you will know exactly what I am talking about here. Apex is streaming now on Netflix worldwide. The Rip. Now, this week also sees me watching the movie The Rip, which I gave 2.5 stars over on Letterboxd. The Rip is a film that was first released on Netflix all the way back at the start of 2026 in January. And here we are now, nearly 5 months into the year, and I have finally sat down and given this film a watch. So, what did I think of The Rip? You have Matt Damon and Ben Affleck star in this film, and for the most part, I will say exactly what almost every other reviewer who has reviewed this film at the start of the year has said, and that is that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon do work rather well together, and this movie does indeed prove that. You also have Stephen Ewan star in this film as well. There are a couple of twists and turns throughout the film which I did enjoy, but I couldn't help but feel there was times where this movie did feel somewhat paper thin, and also I will say that the characters in this film were rather likeable as well, which was good. As for the running time, it does clock in at around 1 hour 55 minutes, and I will be honest that there were some scenes in this that did drag on a little bit, so for me, the running time could have been shaved down by probably about 10 minutes. However, what I can also give The Rip some praise for is the fact that the film did also have some good action sequences in it as well, which I thought was well shot. However though, do I recommend watching The Rip? Well, if like me, you haven't seen this film, despite it being released on Netflix back in January 2026, and you are looking for a crime thriller to watch, then I would recommend giving this one a go. And would The Rip be a film that I would be happy to revisit, rewatch again sometime in the future? For sure, it would be, although I will say that I wouldn't be in a rush to see this film again anytime soon though. The Rip is now streaming on Netflix worldwide. Hokum. Next up this week, I have watched Hokum, which I gave 2.5 stars over on Letterboxd. I ended up getting very bored whilst watching Hokum at the cinema on the day of its release, to the point where at one point I started nodding off, and then I was just basically fidgeting about in my seat. Look, there was some decent ideas that was thrown into Hokum though. When it does come to folk horror, that tends to be the genre within the horror genre, I guess you could say subgenre, that for me is the weakest, unfortunately. And I am going to safely say it now that Hokum is likely to be one of those films that I watch once and once only, unfortunately. Which is a real shame because the trailer for this film made it look like it was going to be very interesting. The fact that there was barely or hardly any dialogue within the first 5 minutes of the film, that is where the problem started for me. Then the other problem I had with the film is the fact that the first act was rather messy as well, which when it comes to a film, if a first act of the film feels off or feels messy, then it's a film that I probably won't enjoy for the rest of the running time. Speaking of that, by the way, the film does clock in at 1 hour and 51 minutes. But for me, this honestly felt like a film that came with a running time of 2.5 hours. You've got Adam Scott, who does star in this Irish folk horror film, which was also directed by Damien McCarthy as well. I will say, though, that this film isn't entirely bad because Hokum does come with some decent horror imagery. It does also come with some good jump scares, which some I did find quite effective at times, but it is a real shame that I couldn't enjoy this as much as I anticipated, sadly. I just think there was so many ideas thrown into this that sadly they didn't all stick the landing. Is Hokum a film that I will remember watching in a few days? Likely not. Is Hokum a film I can see me rewatching and revisiting again, as mentioned earlier in the review? Sadly, I don't think so. As for me, this will likely be a watch once and once only film. But do I recommend watching Hokum to the rest of the horror community? Yeah, sure, I would say so. If you do enjoy watching folk horror, then you may have a decent time watching this. But for me, though, this wasn't my cup of tea. That may have been a slight reference to the film, by the way. But Hokum is currently showing in cinemas and theatres worldwide. Michael. Also this week, I have watched Michael, which I gave 4 stars over on Letterboxd. I was going to watch Michael next week at the cinema, but after being bored of watching Hokum at the cinema, and whilst I was there, I might as well have got entertained by something decent, and so I decided to watch the biopic of Michael Jackson, which is titled Michael. So, did I enjoy watching Michael? Well, given my star rating, I think it is safe to say that I did indeed enjoy watching the film with Michael Jackson's real-life nephew, Jafar Jackson, taking on the role of Michael Jackson. Now, I will be honest, his nephew is a great Michael Jackson impersonator, that is for sure. Like, he made sure that he did his late uncle some justice in the role of Michael Jackson, and safe to say that he did play the role really well. You have Coleman Domingo, who portrays the role of Joseph Jackson, the father of Michael Jackson. What an absolute douchebag his father was. The way he treated Michael, the abuse that Michael went through at the hands of his father, which we see right from the beginning of the story. And they don't sugarcoat the abuse either. The story does start from the early years of Michael Jackson's career when he started performing with his other 4 brothers in his family, which was back then known as the Jackson 5, and of course they had some big hits back then before Michael Jackson decided to go solo. Also, I will say that there is a couple of moments in this story where we see Michael stand up to his father. He says to him, "I'm not a kid anymore, you can't tell me what to do." So he does get back a little bit of that power and step up to his dad, which, if you are watching this, the audience are kind of cheering Michael here at this point. Of course, this wouldn't be a biopic without some well-known songs from the artist sprinkled throughout the running time of the film, which, by the way, does clock in at 2 hours and 12 minutes. So you have songs from the Jackson 5 era, such as ABC and Rockin' Robin, and then we see Michael Jackson go into his solo career, and you can expect to hear songs such as Thriller, Billie Jean, and Bad, which, by the way, by the time we get to the Bad era in 1988, that is where the movie does end with a caption that says, his story continues. It has already been confirmed that Michael 2 is in the works, and filming for the sequel will take place either sometime this year in 2026 or sometime next year in 2027. And I should imagine that Jafar Jackson will be back to reprise the role of Michael Jackson. It does make me wonder whether we will see the sequel feature Michael Jackson going through his transition from being a black singer to a white singer. I do wonder whether that will play a huge factor in the sequel, him struggling with his skin colour. That would be an interesting story to play out, I think. As for would I recommend watching Michael? Yes, for sure. I would say give this a watch. Maybe definitely try watching this one on the big screen if you do get the chance to. I really enjoyed it and I had a fun time with this film as well. Is this a film I can see me going back to and revisiting again? For sure it is. I would happily buy and keep this film on digital platforms later this year. Also, one final note that I want to make about the movie Michael is that we see him bring home a chimp. The chimp is called Bubbles. Now, I feel as though the animals we see in this film are CGI animals. They aren't real. So I will say, as the chimp looks CGI, it was nice to see Robbie Williams from Better Man turn up in this film during his infant years before he found fame in Take That. Michael is now showing in cinemas and theatres worldwide, and also, thank God, I can safely say I have seen this movie as well now, because so many people over this past week has come up to me and asked if I have watched this film, and of course I hadn't up until now, so now they can stop asking me finally if I have seen this film, and I can talk to those who have already seen this film as well. Swapped. We are so close to the end, by the way. I've got 3 more films to talk about. So the first film I'm talking about here is Swapped, which I gave 3.5 stars over on Letterboxd. Swapped is a brand new film that has just dropped over on Netflix around the world. So what did I think of this film? Swapped is an animated movie designed for children to watch. So if you have a child, then this film will be right for them to watch. However, though, I don't think this film is primarily for children. I think that this is a film that all the family members can watch, no matter the age, because for me, I really did enjoy this film. Fresh from the Oscars after winning some awards for Sinners, the horror film that was released in 2025 and was critically acclaimed as well. Michael B. Jordan is back, and this time he is in this children's animated movie. I do think that this animated film is rather cute and rather sweet as well. I must say that I really did appreciate the animation in this film. The colours that I saw throughout the film absolutely popped off on my TV screen. So I do appreciate the film for the animation, but not only that though, because I do also appreciate the film for the story and the heart that went into this story as well. Swapped does come with a running time of 1 hour 42 minutes, and I think it is safe to say that I had a great time watching this film. Is Swapped a film I could see me going back to and revisiting and rewatching again? Yeah, sure, it will be. And do I recommend watching Swapped, regardless whether you have children or not? I would say if you do enjoy watching an animated movie from time to time, then definitely don't sleep on this film, because I really enjoyed it and I would recommend giving it a watch. Swapped is now streaming on Netflix worldwide. In the Lost Lands. Next up this week, I've watched In the Lost Lands, which I only gave half a star over on Letterboxd. Paul W.S. Anderson directed In the Lost Lands, which stars Dave Bautista. That is a film that has been on the watch list on Letterboxd for quite some time now. And I have seen that this movie will be leaving the streaming service Netflix in the UK sometime in May 2026. So before it left the streaming service, I finally decided to check this one out. So what are my thoughts of In the Lost Lands? Well, the film, in my honest opinion, was really bad. This felt like a film that Zack Snyder could have easily have done, because this feels like a film Snyder would have done. It has Snyder written all over it. The use of CGI in this film was well overused, in my opinion. The dialogue in here was also really bad, and to top it all off, the acting in this was rather wooden as well. Is In the Lost Lands a movie I'm going to remember watching? Sadly not. And is In the Lost Lands, a movie I would be happy to revisit, rewatch and revisit again in the future? Definitely not. And is In the Lost Lands a movie I would recommend checking out? Definitely not. That is 1 hour and 41 minutes of my life that sadly I won't be getting back. And also, no wonder why this film is leaving Netflix soon here in the UK. Even Netflix doesn't want this film on their streaming service anymore. In the Lost Lands is streaming now over on Netflix in the UK for a limited time. Bob Marley, One Love. And we are finally on the last film of this week that I have watched, and it is Bob Marley, One Love, which I gave 2 stars over on Letterboxd. I cannot believe it has been over 2 years since Bob Marley, One Love was released back in 2024. This movie was released in cinemas. I had planned to see it in cinemas, by the way, but never at the time did I get the chance to. Then it was on UK streaming service Now TV for a while, then left the streaming service to be on Netflix in the UK, and it has been on there for a while until the end of May, or towards the end of May 2026. That's right, it is leaving Netflix soon here in the UK, so before it left I decided to check it out. So what did I think of Bob Marley, One Love? Well, I won't lie, I'm not the biggest fan of Bob Marley. Sure, I do like some of his songs, like Buffalo Soldier and Don't Worry About a Thing, and of course Sun is Shining as well, especially the remix version on a nice hot sunny day when it is summer time. But that aside, so I'm not the biggest fan of Marley, but wanted to check out his music biopic. At first, I thought they were going for something a little different here, especially in the first act. I felt as though he was more aiming towards a political thriller. But then shortly after the first act, it then did become your basic general music biopic that you may have seen time and time again, which then made the film a little bland. That being said though, the performances in Bob Marley, One Love was great. Is this going to be a film that I will easily remember in a few days? I highly doubt it, but there is some information that you may get out of this film that you didn't know about Bob Marley before. Is Bob Marley, One Love a film I would happily rewatch and revisit again? Maybe so, yes, but I wouldn't be in a rush to watch it again anytime soon though. And is this a film I would recommend watching? That I would recommend watching? If you are a fan of Bob Marley and his music, then sure, check it out if you haven't seen this before. And if you do dig the music biopic movies, again, sure, check this one out. But Bob Marley, One Love is streaming now on Netflix in the UK for a limited time. And that is it for this week's episode of the Movie Wrap Up. I hope you have enjoyed watching my reviews of films that I have been watching over the past week. Feel free to let me know in the comments section down below what films you guys have been watching over this past week, whether it's old, new, in cinemas, in theatres, on Blu-ray, DVD, 4K Ultra, even on VHS. Let me know in the comment section down below, and even on streaming as well. Cannot forget about streaming services as well. And as always, if you are new around here, you like what you see, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below as well. And if you have enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button as well. Really do appreciate it. Of course, I will be back with another episode of the Movie Wrap Up again next Sunday, which will be Sunday the 10th, I believe, 10th of May, Sunday the 10th of May 2026, 6 PM UK time is when you can catch the next episode of Steve's Movie Wrap Up right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. And of course, we are edging closer now to the brand new series of Steve's Lens on Life as well, which starts on Monday the 25th of May, okay? I will keep mentioning that for you at the end of each episode of the Movie Wrap Up until the new series begins. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. From me, goodbye, and I'll see you guys again in my next YouTube video.